Hello and welcome to episode 76 of the Green Arrow and FPL podcast by Fantasy Football Hub as the international break begins to draw to a close and we can all start thinking about FPL again. My name is Fergi and a big welcome to my co-host Adam Hopcroft. Adam, what colour was your arrow in game week 7?
I've forgotten, to be honest. which means red arrow.
Yeah.
I don't forget a green arrow, put it that way. So,
do you want to run through all your team for our podcast?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll run through the players that got me points this week.
That shouldn't
Sanchez. I think that's it. Sanchez. I think that was my only return. I think off the top of my head.
Salah.
Salah. I didn't really. I don't really count Salah because everybody had him. But other than that, it was just 2 points all round. Finished on 40, and I also took a -4. So yeah, it wasn't great. Ended up keeping Shaw because he was started against Everton, and he got. What did he get? Was it like a 2-pointer?
That's always. Even I did a deadline stream, and even in the deadline stream, when we knew that Shaw was going to play, there was all this massive drama if he's going to play or not. And I said he's guaranteed a 2-pointer anyway because it's just the kind of way that United's season have gone so far, haven't it?
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing with that. And I could have got rid of I could have got rid of Shaw instead of Reece James, but I didn't. I got rid of Reece James, and he's looking good to be back now.
Saw that.
Yeah, it's what it is on that. So we move on, and it might have stopped me from getting Cancelo this week if I'd have done that. So who knows?
Always thinking forward, make good stuff. So 40 minus 4.
Exactly.
Your current rank is 187k, a bit of a drop from 106k, but you're all right. You're good. You're got a good team. You've got all the big hitters and stuff. You've got Lukaku already as well, which is good. So yeah,
Well, I think Lukaku was a bit unlucky, wasn't he? I did the match of the day challenge, and as soon as I saw Rudiger run through, thread it through to Lukaku, I was like, this is just brilliant, And it was a different experience for me. So just because it's going back a bit, but obviously most people would have found out the Ronaldo news. Anyone that and then had Lukaku after. Well, doing the match of the day challenge, obviously I took Ronaldo out for Lukaku. I had the opposite experience. So I painfully watched Lukaku somehow blank, not even get an assist. Don't know how he did that, but anyway. And then I had to, go through the pain of watching Man United afterwards. So that was, it was quite tough doing the match of the day challenge. But yeah, it was. I think it was a nothing game week for a lot of people. I think those that wildcarded with the likes of Azpilicueta, Son, Jimenez,
Mbeumo.
Exactly, and Mbeumo. Then they've come out of it quite well, and obviously anyone that captained Salah. I mean, that was the only decision that you needed to get right this week to get a green arrow. It wasn't really about transfers, so. And let's be honest, I don't think anybody really talked up the Salah captaincy. So yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? What colour was your arrow this week?
My arrow was also red. I used my 2 free transfers, so I took out Ronaldo for Lukaku. I was obviously delighted, to see then that Ronaldo wasn't starting. And when we had news from the Leeds presser, I can't remember if it was Thursday or Friday, but that Aylin was definitely out. I had the exact money to do Aylin to Rudiger, so my plan was to do Shaw to Rudiger. But obviously, I got rid of Aylin first there, so I did those. I scored 39, same as you, I think. Sanchez and Salah. Obviously, Greenwood nothing, got booked. Jota nothing. Benrahma nothing. Rafinha nothing. I had Livramento first on my bench, with the assist, but that was only 4 points. I did all on the trend. I think the same as you.
Same,
is hopefully going to reward us this week and moving forward. Because, like I say, I think we mentioned it in the last pod. If he does only miss the last week, people are going to be watching Liverpool, behind their sofas, Trent plays and stuff, because he's had an incredible season. So, yeah, I think I dropped from about 188k to 250k, but I'm not, I do have weeks sometimes where I'm despondent and I'm gutted, but on this one, it was very much, I can hold rank, kind of reasonably hold rank, not like double my rank or anything. I'd be over the moon. So 39, obviously was, it's not a great score, but My team is
it's terrible score.
Well, the average was 38.
I know.
The average was 38. So it's not like, it's not crazy. Seeing as a lot of people use their wild cards, there's a lot of hits and all this stuff. So I'm actually okay. I'm feeling all right. And like I say, a lot of wild cards been played in Game Week 7. A lot of wild cards already went in Game Week 3, Game Week 4. Lots of wild cards.
Game Week 5.
Game Week. Remember
that?
All the knobheads wild cards in Game Week 5.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm in a decent spot. I've got a decent team. I've got a plan for the week, and I've still got the wild card in my back pocket. So that's why I'm happy. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. Not a great week, but in the grand scheme of things, progressing okay. And I think we're still both holding on to a decent rank, decent teams, and looking positive moving forward. So for any new watchers and listeners, you are very, very welcome. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner of the screen and set the alerts so you don't miss our live streams. So usually at 7 p.m. BST every Tuesday evening right here on this channel. We should begin streaming again live very, very soon. We're recording this week. Also, please press the like button if you enjoy our content. It would be much appreciated. So this week, with so many FPL managers considering wildcarding this week, we're going to look at the best wildcard options for Game Week 8. We'll also answer a few Twitter questions along the way. And Adam will show a wildcard draft, which he's done for us if it was indeed wildcarding this week. We'll take a look at the best captaincy options for Game Week 8, hold our weekly competition, and finally take a look at the top of the @FFH_Green Arrow Mini League. So we have the fixture ticker now, looking at the next 6 game weeks, sorted by ease. Don't forget, Hub members can sort them any way they want at fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. So we can see that it's actually Brentford, according to our ticker overall, that have got the best fixtures, even though they're home to Chelsea next. Their next of their next 5, 3 of them are at home. They've got Leicester, Burnley, Norwich, Newcastle and Everton. So a really, really lovely run, for the likes of Tony, I'm saying Mbuemo and Bumo. I can't do so. I need to learn it. They defenders as well, looked pretty decent as well. So I'm sure we'll chat a bit on Brentford. Very, very close behind Arsenal. I've got a superb run of fixtures coming up. They've turned the corner as well. Man City after those, and then Chelsea, and right down the bottom, Man United's fixtures now turns for the worst for the next 6 game weeks. We've got Leicester, Liverpool, Spurs, Man City, Watford, and Chelsea. A horror run there. West Ham's interestingly, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts on Antonio, and players like that, because their fixtures now turn according to the ticker. They've got Everton, Spurs, Villa, Liverpool, Wolves, and Man City as well. Then Watford and Burnley down there as well. So in terms of wildcard, Adam, I think the first thing I'm really interested in is how far fixture-wise do you kind of look ahead when you're thinking of wildcarding?
No more than 6. Well, it depends per position. So goalkeepers, I think at this stage of the season, unless a goalkeeper has got all the great fixtures out of the way, and they've got still to play City, Chelsea, and twice, that is, then I think goalkeepers I look long term, and that's why, for example, even though Sanchez maybe has got tough fixtures after this week, you don't want to use a transfer on a goalkeeper. That'll even itself up, I think, later down the line. I think for outfield players, I tend to look 4 to 6 game weeks, sort of medium to long term. But I think it's always good to, if you're going to do any rotations, to maybe just see if it stacks up a little bit longer term. So yeah, I think 4 to 6, because a lot of change within that time, and players that you bring in may not perform. So I would say that's probably a healthy number to use. I mean, what do you think?
I think when I'm wildcarding, I don't know whether it's just been this season, but I'm not massively focused on fixtures, because I think before I've been caught out in terms of trying to optimize the first wild card to jump on fixture swings, and I don't think it always works out like that. And I think this is the latest I've left my wild card. I'm not using it this week because I don't feel I have to, because I feel I still have a really good team. It'll obviously run out of steam soon, but for the time being, for the next couple of game weeks, I'm looking at my players, I'm looking at the fixtures, and I've got basically, well, practically every player I want. so I'm happy. So I'm thinking more into the wild card. It's not so much the fixtures I look at. It's more of when my team is in need of a complete refresh or repair. I think is when I tend to look. So
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you were referring to if you're bringing in players on a wild card.
I think I probably did ask that question actually.
Yeah, that's how I interpret it.
I think I did.
But I agree with you actually. I think fixture swings are a little bit overrated. I think where you got teams maybe like United and a few others that are coming into like Watford, for example, are coming into really tough runs. You might want to get rid of those players. But I think if I was looking at City's run, that just says rotation galore to me.
It does, yeah. Especially with Champions League all around it as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the same for Chelsea as well. So you could gamble on the right players that get the big hauls. There is that possibility, but I'm not so sure that looking at the fixtures that now is the best time to use it personally. But it is team specific. If your team, so I agree with you. I think it's more when your team needs it rather than just looking at a string of fixtures.
So let's rewind a little bit because I obviously asked a question and answered a different one. In terms of these fixtures then, Adam, if you were wildcarding this week, what are the kind of teams first? We'll look at players specifically in a little bit, but which teams would be interesting you?
I think City and Chelsea would do because it's hard to ignore their fixtures. I think Brentford, maybe after this week, they get quite kind, and I think they've got a couple of players that are very involved in everything. Arsenal possibly, but I'm still not 100% convinced with Arsenal, if I'm being honest. I don't think they're going to score a shed load of goals. That they might keep some clean sheets, but even Palace and Villa, I think Villa will score. And the way Palace are playing, I wouldn't be surprised if they score. And actually, Brighton with a better team in the last match. So I'm not sure that I think with Arsenal they had a couple of who did they have? Norwich and Burnley. Well, no wonder they and then they got up for a North London derby. So I'm not completely convinced that they're all of a sudden going to be top 4 contenders. I don't see that. I still think they're going to be 8th, 9th in the league. Who else? I'm trying to think of other teams.
What about teams who you'd avoid? In terms of the templates, you mentioned Man United just as an example. Would you be looking to get off players like I don't know, maybe Shaw?
Oh yeah,
Greenwood?
Yeah.
And what about Ronaldo?
Yeah, I would. I think I prefer Vardy and I prefer Lukaku and I prefer Kane actually. So all three of those over Ronaldo. So I would definitely be looking. I think Spurs have got an interesting run.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the next 3 or 4 are quite evenly matches, and then after that, is it game week 11 or 12?
It's 12. Incredible.
It's 12. A brilliant run kicks in, and I think allowing yourself a structure where you could have Son and Kane could be an opportunity.
You've just taken my next point out of my mouth there as well. Just in terms of wildcarding, in terms of structure, it's not just a case of looking at the next 3 or 4 weeks and going all in on Chelsea and City, because as you absolutely rightly mentioned, Kane and Son's run, well, Spurs run, obviously they're not playing well at the moment, right? But we were all laughing at Arsenal, after game week 3,
of course.
Right? So Spurs will improve, but they've got a run of 4 games from game week 12 where Kane will very, very likely be the best captaincy option in all 4, right? Home to Leeds, away to Burnley, home to Brentford, home to Norwich. So you can very, very well you can say Kane at home to Leeds and home to Norwich will very likely be the best captaincy option. And if he's in form, we could arguably say that he will be the best one at home to Brentford and away to Burnley as well.
I think the Son Kane double up.
Yeah.
Although it's a lot of money, there's a good opportunity there.
Completely agree. Yeah, and that was and the point I was going to make is obviously got to look forward to the next big fixture swing as well, right? Because those are wildcarding now in game week 7 or 8, and those have wildcarded previously, obviously as well. there's a very, very long time before you can physically wildcard again. Obviously, I think it's game week 19. Is it this year? It was different last year because of COVID, wasn't it, and the way it fell. But game week 19 is the earliest. And if you think of like chips and double game weeks, we normally tend to use our second wildcards in the final third of the season as well. So between game week 8 and game week like 27, 28, 20 game weeks, you don't want to be just targeting the next 3 or 4 fixtures. So yeah, I think that's a really good point there, Adam. And also, Man United's fixtures from game week 15, I think it is as well. They have a run about 15 or 16 game weeks where they've got sensational fixtures. So I just think that's a good point, kind of bearing in mind. And I think the other couple of points, I think I would say if wildcarding, I would definitely keep 2 premiums. As a minimum, as an absolute minimum. I wouldn't go spreading funds because of what we've already said about, Kane and Ronaldo. So for me, Lukaku and Salah are probably the best 2, in terms of holding those price points as well. And I would also keep the best long-term options as well. So the 3 I've written down at the moment, third one's maybe a bit dubious, but Trent in defence, just hold him. Probably Rafinha, I would say, in midfield, and I've got Antonio, as a third striker. Obviously, that could change, if his form changes. But I think those 3, it'd be maybe easy to think about shifting them around to spread funds and to try and optimize the next few game weeks. But your wild card now is basically going to be there for 20 game weeks. You don't want to be messing around, taking out Trent, putting him back. The same with Rafinha. The same with even if Rafinha misses this game week because of this whole international thing, you're still going to want him in game week 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and stuff. They're just a couple of extra points, I think. A bit of a few tips or guidance or kind of whatever you want to call it, I suppose, for people who are wild carding. Anything to add there, Adam, at all? Or
no, agree with everything you said.
Okay, so what we've got now, just on screen, we are fortunate enough to be able to use at FPL Matthew's wildcard shortlist. So for those of you who don't know, Matthew is widely regarded as the FPL GOAT due to his insane record of 3 top 500 finishes and 8 top 10k finishes. You can catch his pre-deadline weekly team reveal at fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. So I'll just read through these very, very quickly. So this is his shortlist. In all fairness, it is reasonably short. He's categorized it by premium, mid-priced or budget, and by keeper, defender, midfielder, and forward. His premium defenders, he has got Trent and Azpilicueta as the 2 he's very likely to have, and he needs to make a decision between Diaz and Cancelo. In terms of mid-price defenders, Rudiger, Laporte, and Chilwell are the 3 he's got his eye on. Rudiger is his key pick there, and in defence, Livramento is very likely to be his key pick in terms of. Also, he's got White and Tierney. He has got Sanchez and Ramsdale, budget enablers for the keepers. Premium mids, Salah. Mid-price mids, Benrahma, Jota, Rafinha, Foden, and Zaha. And then budget enablers, mids, where all the value as we know this season so far: Smith Rowe, Saka, Mbeumo, Sarr, Decore, Gray, Townsend, and Gallagher. And then premium forwards, the only one who's got is Lukaku. He hasn't put Ronaldo in there. Mid-price, he's got Antonio. Calvert-Lewin is an interesting one. I'd be interested in your thoughts on Calvert-Lewin, Adam, in a minute. And Jimenez as well. And then budget enablers for forwards, Tony and Hwang. So quite a good list there, I think. Firstly, Adam, I suppose, what do you think of the list? Does anything kind of massively stand out there for you in terms of players you maybe expect to be in there, or vice versa?
No, it's not. It's not largely dissimilar to a list that I would do as well. I think I can understand all of the decisions there, and I think any other players I'd add in would probably be more gambles than dead certs for a wildcard team. I think he hasn't got Son in, has he? That's the one I noticed.
No, he's not in. No.
That was the I think Son and Vardy are the 2 that I think have probably deserve a mention. I think Did he got Duffy in there? No. So Duffy was another one, and he's got Torres in, hasn't he?
No, just Foden.
Okay, so they're probably the 4 that. And goalkeepers, I think he hasn't got Raya either, has he?
No, just Sanchez and Ramsdale. Yeah.
Well, there's a few extra I'd throw in, but I think on the whole, I can't argue with anybody that is included, and there's probably just a few more that I'd chuck in.
Should we help him solve his 50-50 between Diaz and Cancelo? So I know who I would pick.
Easy. It's Cancelo every day of the week.
Yeah, I'm the same. We've played every game so far. Obviously, it was in check. I'm not sure. Has Zinchenko had a knock or something, or has he just been kind of?
He's been injured. He has been injured.
Back fit though now, isn't he? But
yeah, I don't know. We'll see on the press conferences, but I don't think it makes too much. I think the reason you can go Cancelo and not worry is because of the likes of White, Livramento, and some of the others that can come in. And so I don't think it matters. And if anything, even if he plays 2 out of 3 and you get a couple of points off your sub, I think that's fine.
And just in terms of those, mid-priced or budget enablers, the whole Benrahma, Jota, Rafinha, kind of Smith Rowe, Saka, who would your, obviously knowing what we know now, who would your kind of 2 or 3 key players be in that bracket at the moment?
Oh, it is really tough. So currently I have Gray and Gallagher. If I was wildcarding now, I wouldn't pick either of them, although Gray did look really good against United.
Incredible, haven't he?
And do you know what? I think with Calvert-Lewin coming back, it could benefit him most out of the midfielders, because he got a couple of his goals with Calvert-Lewin in the team.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I think Mbumu's looked good, and on the whole, he's probably flattered to deceive in terms of turning his chances into fantasy points. I know everyone will remember the goal versus West Ham, but leading up to that, he'd missed a lot of chances. And I think at some point, who's the guy that's come on and scored in the last 2 matches?
Vizza.
Yeah. So my brother-in-law is a big Brentford fan and has been speaking him up. So I don't know if at some point there could be either a tweak in formation, or it could be that, because he has played a number of different roles. So when Bremo last season, I believe, has played, I think at times he played wing back, he played wide forward and centre forward. So he's played a lot of different roles within the system. So that could change at some point, but I think based on what we know now, it seems to be working with him and Tony. So I can't really make a case to go against him. I'm trying to predict if Brentford could change, particularly if they want to go a bit more expansive. I'm trying to think of other ones. I think Smith Rowe looks good when he plays, and I think it's just with Arsenal they've got quite a few options in that area. But I know a lot of people prefer Saka to Smith Rowe. I prefer Smith Rowe to Saka, because what I like about Smith Rowe is he seems this season to be making those sort of late runs into the box and getting into goal scoring positions. So I do quite like Smith Rowe as well. Who do you think?
I think my is, as we say, right? So players like Jota and Greenwood, are going to be probably in and out with the team. I think I'd be a lot more content on Jota if he hadn't had that injury this week.
I wouldn't sell him if he didn't. Yeah, agreed.
So I've got Jota and Greenwood. I still have to make a decision on who to sell. I think I'm still definitely going to sell Greenwood. Out of the two, I think, because like I say, Jota is just he's just there all the time, and Greenwood, that's dangerous. And neither United, and Liverpool's fixtures are much better as well. So obviously Rafinha, that kind of goes without saying. I think Sarr's probably run his course a little bit as well. Missed his points, fine.
Agreed.
But I think he's probably gone. I do like the Everton boys, Decore, Gray, and Towns. In all fairness, I think there's a case for all of them there. But I think the transfer I'm making this week, just based on what I've seen, and I called out a few weeks ago, and I'm gutted I haven't actually got him in yet, because obviously missed out on his last week's haul. But Mbeumo is the one, and it's more for his price. It's not just his price, obviously, but his price also frees me up, $1 million odd pound, which I can use then across any position to quickly move to base, not far off any player, even one like Lukaku to Kane, or a Semedo to Alonso, or kind of whatever it is. So I think with that in mind, that extra million you get, or even more, million and a half, saving on players like Foden and kind of all these players, I think the upside you get elsewhere in your team is probably worth it. And I do think in Mbeumo, just watching him, he looks, and I love the eye test of these kind of players. He looks so dangerous, and I completely agree with you. He's flat to deceive in terms of points. But in terms of potential with the fixtures they've got upcoming as well, he for me is probably the one which I'm going to go with. But if he was a million more, I probably wouldn't. But it's kind of what it does elsewhere.
What about Man City? Because when we were talking then, I sort of ruled them out because they were maybe the sort of touch in the next bracket. But as you brought up Jota and Greenwood, I think this is dividing opinion at the moment, because I think a few people have been burnt with the likes of Torres. People have been burnt last year with, and earlier this season with Mahrez, Foden. I've been there in the last 2 seasons. I've owned Foden, Mahrez, and Torres, and I've got to say it hasn't been an enjoyable experience for any of them. But like any FPL lunatic, I'm tempted to go back, and we'll see my wildcard in a minute.
Wildcard draft.
Yeah, I know why you're laughing. Yeah, I've got a sky blue shirt on as well. So I think it's hard when you're talking about eye test. Then Foden at the moment,
what a footballer! He's unbelievable.
I mean, that pass for Saka the other day, and his performance against Liverpool was a little short of sensational. So I don't think I don't think anybody has got any doubts of Foden as a player. For me, his levels above Grealish in terms of his finishing ability and his ability to get goals. So I think he's more likely to explode than someone like Grealish. So for me, I really do like Foden. It's just it's pet roulette, and I think it's easy to say, oh, you just put them in, they'll either play or they'll over 3 or 4, 5, 6 game weeks they'll even up. But you can say that, but then look at Torres' owners. Over the last 3 or 4 game weeks, he didn't even see the pitch, I don't think, for the last 3. So I think it's really, really difficult. And actually, the easier games, Foden is arguably City's best player at the moment, maybe alongside De Bruyne and Cancelo, but he's pretty key. So, given they lost to PSG, will he use the likes of Mahrez, maybe Grealish, and other players against Burnley and Palace? And Foden will get the Champions League. It's just they've got too many forwards. Not to mix it up. It's just such a tough one, because for example, I can see Torres starting this weekend, particularly with Jesus out, and doing really well. But then and I have thought about bringing Torres in this week, but then it's just one game week, and we're going to be back to where we are, where he starts 3 of 6, and it's a lot of money, isn't it? Because you've mentioned Mbeumo and all of the others.
They're going to play, every game, and maybe not every minute of every game, but not far off every minute of every game. And I think when I was bigging up Torres, I think was it pre-game week 3? I can't think. It was around then. I think a couple of things have changed since then. One is now we're in Champions League season, right? And you just have no idea who's going to play each game. We have no idea. We can't even get any clues. We have no idea. Whereas at that period, we had an idea, of what team was going to be, and I would. What was the other point? I had another point then about the players available, the alternatives in that bracket are absolutely fantastic. And as you kind of mentioned, all the ones we've mentioned, like this list, right? Benrahma, Jota, Rafinha, Zaha, Smith Rowe, Saka, Mbeumo, Doucouré, Gray, Townsend, we didn't have all those in game week 3 and 4, did we? So I personally think now, if you were to ask me now, and maybe I was wrong at the time, happy to hold my hand up, but I think now, I think I'd be more tempted by Foden. Obviously, he's getting a lot of game time, looks incredible, but I do think there are other I think I'd prefer actually Cancelo and Diaz to play in Foden. Personally, just I think Diaz is not far off guaranteed 6 points every game, whereas Foden needs an attacking return every game to kind of match him. So
yeah, okay, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think I'm just looking at it and thinking logically. You've got 6 players for 3 spots, haven't you? And that's assuming that Bernardo Silva doesn't play one of the front 3 roles. So you've really got Grealish, Foden, Jesus, Sterling, Mahrez, Torres. Have I missed anyone obvious out of there?
Not for the front 3, no.
Not for the front 3.
No.
So you've got 3 players for 6. Sorry, 6 players for 3 spots, and any of those 6 players are capable of hauling against Burnley, are capable of hauling against Palace, etc. So he could pick any of them, and we can probably guess that Jesus won't be involved against Burnley, which is why maybe the Torres interest. But then he might start Sterling as a false start, as a 9. It's
anyone who tries to guess is just that's all it is it? Like how many times have we had those team sheets at like 2:00 on a Saturday afternoon and gone, oh my goodness, what is this? The only thing that's stayed quite stable this season so far is the defence. Actually, it's been kind of Cancelo, Walker, Laporte, and Diaz and Edison. But other than that, it has it's chopped and changed an awful lot.
I think the big difference, if you look at Liverpool, for example, and it's a shame about Jota's injury because I was happy to hold him because he was 4 of 3.
Yeah.
If you think about it, so he's gonna get minutes. You'd expect him to have 30 minutes pretty much minimum every match, and he looks like he'll score in any match. So his injury is a bit of a blow because I was hoping he'd become even more of a differential, and because I quite like watching Jota. You always know something's going to happen, good or bad. He's like a Mbeumo who misses loads of chances. At least Jota, if you think of the Brentford and the Palace game and the Leeds game, he was unlucky. I mean, he was points dodging, and I don't think he did a lot wrong. He was in the position.
Definitely didn't. Where was it? Raya pulled off that save.
Yeah, exactly.
The best save I've ever seen in my life.
Exactly, he didn't do a lot wrong with that. He should have scored the Palace one.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But then, yeah, I think he's been a little bit unlucky. So, yeah, we'll see what they say. I mean, it could be this injury is actually not that bad, and he's just been sent back as a precaution. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that.
Just before we move on, I've just got a couple of the names which I would probably throw into the list. So I completely agree with you on Vardy. I always overlook Vardy. I always overlook him, but the fixtures are quite decent. He just he's number 1 pick. He's on penalties. He's in incredible form. It's just
and United haven't got any.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, we missed that. I think your internet went down. But were you going to say that United haven't got any central defenders?
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Maguire's out for a couple of weeks, and I think United have confirmed this afternoon that Varane's going to be out for a number of weeks as well. So I'm not even sure who would fill those spots. Now, it would obviously be Lindelof. Who would the other one be? I'm sure, to be honest.
Could be the return of Phil Jones, couldn't it?
Could be indeed. And but United haven't looked good defensively anyway. Like if De Gea hadn't been in absolutely incredible form, they've conceded a lot more as well. Shaw hasn't looked good defensively for me. Wan-Bissaka seems a bit, I don't know, a bit erratic, shall we say? So yeah, that's going to be interesting, and I also think that's going to affect the United's attacking output as well, because as much as Maguire and Varane don't massively affect what happens in the final third, they're the ones play the ball into midfield and all this kind of stuff. So I do think it's going to affect them. So Vardy, I think, is a great. I actually put in the captaincy poll this week because I do think he's going to have a good week with Vardy. Some other ones I would mention. I've just got 2 or 3 more. So I've got Watkins for Villa. So I think he's looked very incredibly dangerous, much more dangerous than Ings. And while I wouldn't choose him myself, I do think if you were looking at Villa, then Watkins is a really good option. I think that Mason Mount is probably, I know he missed a couple of game weeks because of injury and stuff, but I do think he is an option, and I expect him to score reasonably well over these next few weeks. Reece James, I don't want you to grimace at that, Adam, because I know you're just taking him out, but it looks like today, he's back in training, and he looks all. Well, obviously you you obviously rate him as an FPL asset because you bought one on your wildcard, right? So, he could be back. And the other two, you mentioned Grealish, which I agree, Foden is probably the better option. The one we haven't talked about at all, it's quite interesting, is Kevin De Bruyne. And again, it's probably because of price more than anything. Now, my just initial observations on De Bruyne, I didn't think he looked good against Liverpool. I don't think he's having nearly as much influence in the games as he used to have. He's not on penalties. I think we know that when Mahrez is on the pitch. I'm not sure about anyone else. Maybe Gundogan potentially now as well. I'm not sure. So for me, De Bruyne at the moment is probably a bit of a no-no. I think there are just better ways of spending your cash, especially if you have a captaincy option in kind of Salah or Lukaku every week. What are your thoughts on people looking at Kevin De Bruyne? Not on the people looking at Kevin De Bruyne. What are your thoughts on Kevin De Bruyne?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think at the moment I would rather go for other premium players that are on penalties. That are, I think with De Bruyne as well. I mean, he does score, but he's not as, like, for the same money, not too much more. If you look at even Mane, I'd probably prefer to have, and Son. They just get more goals, and I think I would trust them more. So yeah, and there's his injury record recently hasn't been great. So yeah, I think I wouldn't be captaining him in any of the game weeks in the near future. So
I don't think you captain with any confidence, especially when we're looking at someone like Salah, right, who is just, I mean, I'm a Salah fan, but I must admit, hands up, over the years, I've doubted him sometimes as an FPL asset, just because purely, again, eye test, because he hangs out right when he's not playing well, he's not confident, he hugs that touchline. But tell you what, that goal he scored against Man City was absolutely breathtaking. He is confident, he is on form,
great goal,
he has the fixtures. Yeah, he's the man. He's the man for me to captain. Hit probably Lukaku in game week 9 at home to Norwich, I would say. But other than that, Salah until maybe looking at game week 12. When we talked about Kane earlier. So I think when you look at it that way, De Bruyne for me is a bit expensive. You're not going to captain him with any confidence.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so on screen now from Hub Opt Stats, we have the total expected points for all positions for the opening 7 game weeks of the season. You can get this data yourself at fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. So top of the shop, unsurprisingly, Mo Salah. What a player, what a season he's having. So he has had 57 expected points in 7 game weeks, which is over 8 points per game. He's been absolutely sensational. Antonio, not far behind, 47.6. He's been brilliant too. Mane is actually quite high, 46.5. He should have had a bucket load, and he just hasn't. He's just, it's just not falling for him, is it? Jota, interesting, is up there as well. As we talk about Jota, he's averaging roughly 6 points per game week in expected. I must iterate. This is expected points, not actual points. Bruno still quite high, 11.8, but for his price, it's a tough one to swallow there. Vardy is up there. We mentioned Vardy, 38 points. St. Maximin, we haven't mentioned St. Maximin yet, and the new kind of owner bounce potentially at Newcastle. Is he one, Adam, you would ever consider over someone like maybe Tony or maybe Calvert-Lewin or someone kind of along those lines? Is he someone you could ever see bringing your team as a striker?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's a great option. He's looking sharp. He's going to be very buoyant given the recent news. The fans are going to be right behind them. I think he's a really good shout. So yeah, I think he's upped his game this season in terms of goal, in terms of output in particular. So in terms of, he's been ticking along quite nicely with goals and assists. Passes the eye test. I actually feel like if I compare him with someone like Traore, for example, your favourite, I think he's got more end product, particularly in front of goal. So I think they're both great on the eye, but I think he has a little bit more of that X factor. So I think he's a really, really good option, and he's their star player. Wilson's back in training. I think that could be a positive from the assist potential as well. So yeah, the only thing with St. Maximin that's always his injuries have always concerned me. He's quite injury prone. So, but I think at the moment, I think in that below sub 7 million category, there aren't loads of options, but I think he's definitely worthy of our consideration, isn't he? So,
and looking ahead just to their fixtures from game week 12, so they've got almost the same fixtures as the Spurs you mentioned earlier. They're home to Brentford in game week 12, then away to Arsenal, then home to Norwich in 14, and home to Norwich in 15. So looking at
got home to Norwich and home to Norwich.
What did I say? Oh, sorry, home to Norwich in 14.
I'll tell you what, I'm definitely getting him in now.
A double game week against the same team. No, sorry, home to Norwich in 14, home to Burnley in 15. So, which again is a very, is a very good fixture. So, just that I know we mentioned earlier about wildcard and into fixture swings. But as if my Chelsea, Man City sort of team run out of steam by game week 12. Game week 12 is looking at as good a time as any at the moment, but obviously we'll see closer at the time. And looking at predicted points, so this is predicted. This is the one we want to know. Mm-hmm. Predicted points for the next 6 games. This is between game week 8 and game week 13. Top of the shop, unsurprisingly, still is Mo Salah. Don't get rid of Salah from your team. If anyone's considering it, obviously I don't think anyone is after last week, but put him there. But De Bruyne is second, so he is second in terms of expected points. Don't forget this data is pulled from a lot of historic data, which all the best kind of predicted points tools are brought from. It's not from the last 4 gamings, anything like that. This is from reams and reams and reams of data. Kane and Son are in there, so we mentioned Kane and Son, you mentioned the double up there, both at 38 and 36 points respectively. Lukaku is also up there as well, and Mane. Alonso is in there, very much likely based on the fact that the algorithm, I think that Alonso is going to stay, and Sterling, and then Grealish, and then Vardy. So that's the top kind of 7 or 8 there. De Bruyne is the one that interests me there. I'm still not going to bring him in, but the Kane and Son ones are definitely one, as you mentioned, one to keep an eye on. And one for wildcarders, I think, just need to maybe think a little bit ahead, because if you spread your funds out and you go for an expensive back 5, we've got loads of questions on this now, which we're going to touch on. But if you go for a premium back 5, just as an example, while you may do well, in the next few weeks, absolutely granted, you're going to find it incredibly tough to get to Sons as an example. So, yeah, anyone there, Adam, kind of surprise you at all, or anyone you think should be in there that isn't at all?
Well, I think Trent's missing, but that'll be because of the injury. So I know it factors.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it factors that. I'm surprised Cancelo's not in there, is he? Which that surprises me.
He's not in there, no.
Really, and so yeah, I'm trying to look at the others.
Diaz is in kind of right down the bottom at 28
Diaz
points.
Is in at the bottom, yeah.
So he's probably just underneath him, you would guess.
I know it does these types of algorithms tend to favour forward players more, don't they? Yeah. So, yeah, it's not really too surprising.
Okay. So we've got I accidentally put up your wildcard draft there. Let's have a look at it actually. Let's not hold off anymore. We've got your wildcard draft, Adam, before we move on to loads of questions. So Adam, do you want to run us through, if you were wildcarding this week, your game week 8 wildcard draft?
This was the one that I did yesterday, and there's still a lot of question marks, but I'll go through it. So goalkeepers are Foster and Raya. I think for me it would be between Raya, Sanchez, and Ramsdale. I can see arguments for all of them, and I think at the moment I have Sanchez. I'm happy with Sanchez, happy keeping him. I think Brighton are the 2nd or 3rd best defence, so I'm not going to go changing that. I think what I like about Raya is that, firstly, I think we just talked about him being a very good goalkeeper, and I think Brentford on the whole have looked fairly solid. They tend to concede a lot of shots outside the box. He's very good for save points, and with Ramsdale, as much as he is nailed at the moment, Arteta has occasionally, rotated goalkeepers, usually after Europe, but I'm not. I don't know. I think I'd probably go Raya at the moment out of all of them, if I was going to pick. But it's very close between Ramsdale and Sanchez as well. I could make an argument for any of them, and then defence, I've gone Rudiger, Trent, Cancelo, White, and Livramento. I think 4 of them would be nailed. It would just be that Chelsea spot. So I like, and if you fancied something a bit different, you could go for Duffy and Ramsdale over Wright, or if you wanted some different Arsenal coverage, because I think Duffy is a good option as well. But the Chelsea defender, I just think he's the safest starter, Rudiger. And I think with Cancelo in there, it's good to probably, but I think you could look at James, you could look at Chilwell, you could look at Azpilicueta as well. And then in midfield, I've got Mbumu, Rafinha, Salah, and then I've gone for the City double up of Foden and Torres. I think you do one or two things. I just took from a completed team, and then I've got Antonio, a 4.5 Scarlett, and Lukaku. My thought process at the moment is, and probably the two controversial or most controversial ones will be Foden and Torres. There are a couple of alternative things you can do here, depending on your risk appetite. So Foden and Torres could easily become, become Son, and then a 4.5, for example. So I think it's just about enough money to be able to do that if you wanted to go 4-4-2. And I'm probably leaning more towards that at the moment, something like that. Or it could be you think, well, Antonio, I won't go with Antonio, I'll go with Tony. So you could go for Son, Tony, and then you'd have a little bit of money left whether you went Hwang as as a third striker. Or so I think, I just thought, well, it's a hypothetical wild card, so I'm going to be brave and attack the City fixtures. But the reality is both Foden and Torres could be on the bench the weekend. We just know it. As many articles as I've seen and read, you just can't predict Pep. And that's the reason it's very, very, very rare that anybody ever gets 11 out of 11 when they're doing the lineup. It's very, very rare when they're doing the predictions. So there's just been no formula to predict Pep. And, you might be able to get 9 or 10 of the 11, but yeah, it's I'm more comfortable with Cancelo because of the depth of the defence. But yeah, I'm not. I thinking about Foden and Torres. When I just wrote out those 6 names, it's 3 out of 6.
And there's Champions League. This is and there's still in the Carabao, which is played in this next month as well. They've got games. They've got midweek games now every week up until the next international break. So 2 games every week.
Yeah, and I was thinking if you go for 2, the chances are that at least one of them will start. But I don't even think that's true. I mean, both Foden and Torres were on the bench again.
Yeah.
In my squad depth. So yeah, I think I probably would change that around. And the player I'd look at is Son. I think he was very good against Villa, very good. And I don't think it matters how Spurs do. He's a captain option. Yeah. He's a captain option. I think it's just one of these players you can just trust. I think there's certain players that have got pedigree and load every week, but I think you can just trust Son just to keep ticking along. And I think if you do bring him in, you just need to be patient and keep him for that great run as well. So yeah, I've got the dilemma this week in terms of who I bring in, but I do like Son.
Yeah, I think I largely agree. I think another thing why potentially I wouldn't go for double City mid as well if you're going for a 4.5 in terms of someone like Scarlett. It's different if you're going for maybe, I don't know, Louise from Villa.
Of course.
You get some points off the bench, but I think if you're going for a lot of players who are rotated an awful lot, I think you need to make a decision probably to have a semi-decent bench, even though there is only Scarlett there who doesn't play. So I'm going to argue with that. I think personally as well, I would probably move either Foden or Torres down, all depending on funds. I think I would personally prefer, as I've said, I would go White to Diaz. I prefer White and Diaz. I prefer Diaz and a cheaper mid to White and Foden or Torres personally. But a player as well, I think, who's going to come back in. We briefly mentioned him so far as well, but I think I'd prefer, if I was wildcarding anyway, someone along the lines of Calvert-Lewin or maybe even Callum Wilson, because this new bounce that Newcastle are going to have is going to be is going to be incredible. St. Maximum is on absolute fire. Wilson is on penalties. We've talked about this Newcastle run from game week 12 onwards. You know, like I say, if you are thinking of wildcarding, you need to be thinking ahead. It's not just about the here and now with your team. So this, you know, and Antonio, Wilson, and Lukaku as an example. You know, maybe not expect massive returns from Wilson immediately, but we all know when Wilson plays, he usually scores goals. So, you know, he's just as good an option as anyone. So I think they're just the slight tweaks I'd make. But your Son point is a good one, kind of structurally, getting him in nice and early. You just leave him in all the way through, wouldn't you? And then all you have to maybe do is probably move someone like Lukaku to Kane potentially in game week 12 or something if you did want to double up on Spurs. But no, really interesting stuff there. And we've got quite a few questions. We've got a load, and so I'll try and pick up the ones that we haven't answered so far. So we had a question off Simon Ashby. With all the injuries and flags, is Ronaldo to Lukaku a move you can put off for one more week? I would personally say yes to that with all the injuries and flags, because you're probably going to captain Salah, I would guess. Brentford have looked decent. Chelsea haven't been scoring a lot of goals. Ronaldo's probably just, he's just likely to score this week as Lukaku is. Any difference there, Adam?
Completely agree with you. Yeah, I think it's fine.
Okay. Chris Agossa sent us a wildcard team, but a really good question, actually. How sure are we that the likes of Hwang, Armstrong, Tony, Gallagher, Foden or Torres will outscore the nailed City or Chelsea defenders? This is kind of what we've just been talking about. I think I would prefer, personally, a double up on someone like Diaz and Cancelo over Cancelo and Torres, or Diaz or Foden. What are your thoughts there, Adam, on these players who they're either unproven or they're rotation risks against someone like 6-point Diaz?
I would agree with what you've said. I think that one of the reasons I wildcarded earlier on is to get rid of the third forward spot, because I wanted to go bigger in defence. So I think your point's completely valid. It's hard to squeeze Son in if you've got double Man City, Chelsea and Trent. So that's the only reason that I'd be tempted not to do double City defence. And I think White and Livramento are really good. They offer really good value. But I take your point. I don't particularly like Armstrong. I think Southampton don't look like scoring. Who were the others he mentioned? There was some good options in that.
There was. It was Gallagher, Foden, Torres, Hwang, all these kind of.
Yeah, I'm not sure on Hwang. I think
he's got a lot of attackers, haven't they?
Yeah, and he scored 2 good goals. But yeah, they have got a lot of attackers. I mean, I don't know when Neto's back, but they've got, obviously, Podence could come in, Traore,
Fabio Silva,
Trincao, Fabio Silva. Yeah,
and
exactly.
Jimenez is going to start every game guaranteed. So you've got like 4 players or 5 players playing for a couple of spots.
And he scored pretty much with 2 shots, didn't he? From what I could see. I mean, in fairness, actually, could have had an assist for Trincao's goal, a shot that hit the bar. But yeah, I'd fancy Diaz over him. Who were the other one? Tony, I like. I think Tony.
Yeah, I think he could be an awesome option.
I think he's a very, very good option. I think particularly with the fixtures coming up. And he's got a goal, and he's one of those strikers that's got a goal and assist threat. So
we've had a lot of questions about double defense, so I can't go through them all. We got FPL Sponge, Paul H. Let's have a look who else we've had. We have had questions off FPL Ross, Dave Mitchell. A lot of them asking around, big at the back defense. So, double Chelsea defense, double Man City defense. I think personally, I'm looking at something on the lines of what you've got in your wildcard draft. I think Trent, Cancelo, Rudiger, and Livramento are probably the 4 I would pick. I think the 5th spot then is very dependent on what you need or want to in the rest of your squad. If you want to go for that Diaz or James or Alonso or Chilwell or even Walker, someone like that, it probably means you can't have Tony or Calvert-Lewin or whoever else, and it also affects your picks in midfield as well, and whether you can have Son or not as well. So I think it's probably a personal preference there, and and kind of the rest of your team. Obviously, if you still got Ronaldo, Lukaku, and Salah, you probably can't do that anyway, and definitely not have Son. But yeah, in terms of what's right and wrong, I think, and I'm trying to think ahead of my team, not just for the next 3 or 4 game weeks. Albeit, I'm sure the Man City and Chelsea defenders will score a lot of points, right? But if you flood your team with 6 players from those 2 teams, they're bound to have a bad result somewhere along the line, right? In this run. But also by the time you start to come out with this run, game week 11, 12, 13, you're going to want different players. You're going to fight. You can only ship, if you use your wildcard, you can only ship a player a week unless you're taking hits. And this is why I tend to, I think I mentioned this at the start of the season. I definitely do it in other fantasy games as well. Is I like to have my team in a constant state of pivot, almost, in terms of I can pivot quite quickly onto the next big thing, which is why I'm pretty keen on maybe only having 1 City defender, 1 Chelsea defender, sticking with like Trent, Rafinha, Jota, having 2 premiums, like at the moment it's Salah and Lukaku, but it could be Kane in future, but not pigeonholing myself both structurally and by team into something. And it may mean I won't be the highest point scorer every week, but I'm a firm believer in the past this strategy enables you to score pretty well nearly every week, if that makes sense. So I suppose that's my approach to looking at the next few weeks in terms of these double ups and triple ups. You will score big, but you also will score low. And as we say over and over again, for me, your rank in game week 38 is what matters. Nothing else matters. That's the rank which is pinned to your FPL record. So sorry about a bit of a well, it's not a rant, but just a bit of a thing on how I feel about it. How do you feel about ads? The kind of double ups and triple ups.
I don't know. It's tough, isn't it? It's I think you can get blindsided by any team. So you could quite easily just look at, Man City got Burnley the weekend. They've won the last few 5-0. I'm just, I'm going to take the opportunity and go treble City. But like you said, the exit is very difficult. And I think there's also with the players that are in good form, that have got good fixtures. So it's not just all about City. It's not just all about Chelsea. Because whilst they've got good fixtures, the one thing that they haven't got is expected minutes on their side. You need both. You need the combination of both. So the talisman. So looking at the Brentford guys, yeah, they might not win 4 or 5-0, but maybe if they get a 2-1 win and they both get a goal and assist, that's all that needs to happen. So, I think I'd tweak my wildcard team that I've put on there. I'm not as convinced with City. I think City will win comfortably those matches. It's a lottery as to who will be involved.
Yeah, agree.
If you went for most teams, and I think it's similar with Chelsea as well. But if you went with most teams, and if you knew Liverpool won 5-0, you could quite confidently think Salah will be involved, Mane will be involved, and then either Jota or Firmino, depending on who start. You wouldn't have any worries about that. Where City could win 5-0, and Foden, Torres, Mahrez could all blank and not have any involvement, not even have a minute on the pitch. So I think that's the thing. Everyone go, I've seen it. I said that's all comments earlier, like, people that haven't got City are going to be hiding behind a sofa. Well, you got to get the right City players is the tough thing, haven't you? Which it's not about getting City coverage. That's a load of nonsense. You got to get the right players, and by going with City attackers, you could easily get the wrong ones, which is in fact worse than not having any.
No, I think probably singing on the same hymn sheet there a bit, Adam, in terms of making sure we don't overcommit and always having one eye on the future. Question from David Mitchell. Great to have you back, guys. I appreciate this Game Week preview, but could you quickly consider if there might be any other stand-up weeks for potential wildcard further down the line, please? I'd like to hold mine as long as I can, ideally. So, we mentioned at the start that we, like to use it to kind of repair our team. The 2 which stand out to me as potentials, even as early back as game week 2 or 3, we were looking at game week 7 and 8 as 2 which, could be ones. We're we're obviously here now. So we mentioned game week 12 earlier is potentially one, because it's when the Chelsea incredible run starts to run out of steam. It's when, like, we mentioned Spurs, Newcastle, but it's all like at those things as well. It's all kind of form dependent as well, isn't it? Because if Spurs are just absolutely awful, losing every game 2-0, you're not going to want to do a double up on the. If Newcastle just are awful, you're not going to want to. So that's game week 12, and the other one, game week 15. When Man United in particular just embark on this fantastic run. So it's probably unlikely. If we're taking out Bruno, Ronaldo, and Shaw, just use three as examples. They're going to be hard to get in. Even one of them is going to be hard to get in. If you're thinking you definitely have Salah, you more than likely have Kane or Lukaku as well at that point. So they're the two I'm kind of thinking of, and I think I'd be a bit more likely to wildcard then, because I don't think what I want to do, because when you start to get into kind of game week 17, 18, it's around the Christmas sort of period, and even then there's rest and rotation, and your wild card are then out of force rather than actual out of necessity as well. So I think 12 and 15 are the two which I'm currently looking at, but as we know, right, we just never know until we get there. Apologies, Adam, anything to add there as well about that?
No, I agree. I think you've come up with the 2 game weeks.
You agree with me a lot this evening, Adam. I'm not used to it, but I'm quite enjoying it. Question of Nick B: what players would you predict will rise most in game week 8 to 15? I think we've probably mentioned a lot of players who we fancy the next few. Anything there, Adam, in terms of rising prices?
I think the Brentford players will be popular, particularly as their fixtures get better and better. So I think both Tony and Mbeumo would be, and maybe even a couple of the defenders.
Good shout. Quick question off FPL Ross. Would be great. Would be great to see you back on the airwaves. I'm wondering whether the best time to use the bench boost is. I think it could be effective, fixture dependent during a double game week. Targeted defender, goalkeeper doesn't get rotated. So, for anyone who hasn't played FPL previously as well, this may be useful for you as well. So, Adam, just want to give a little rundown on maybe when the best time theoretically to use the bench boost is.
Theoretically, and the person that you want to follow for this is Ben Krellin. So if you don't follow Ben, I'd advise to, because you'll get a better answer there. Yeah. But I think that the theory is that if you can wildcard a week before a double game week, fill your team full of players that play twice, maybe some value players that play twice, and then use it at that point. So you wildcard quite close to a double game week, because then you get rid of any chances of injuries, or you've got the most information. So I think that's the optimum way of doing it. It didn't quite work out last year largely because of COVID and the impacts of that. So I think it's very hard. At the end of the season, we were saying, well, that strategy, how many points did we waste? But I don't think we really saw the proper true upside, because every player was a doubt. And I think it was a bit of an anomaly last season. But I think as we get later on into the season, it's usually after game week 30, 31, 32, 33, where you'll get those double game weeks. And, I've had good success usually with bench boost. I think my best ever score, I got a game week rank once of 146 or something, and it was a bench boost. So as bad as it was last season, the season before, it was brilliant. And I think you put yourself in a position to get lucky. Obviously, last season, both my goalkeepers had COVID in my
I was just going to raise draft. That. I remember that.
But you can't. There's no way.
Can't legislate for it, can you?
Yeah, exactly. And Bielsa, who's incredibly good with team news, failed to mention Meslier
thing quiet.
Kept that quiet. Yeah, exactly. So I think that I put that down more to bad luck, and I think it was a bit of an anomaly season. So I think the best way to maximise that particular one trip is to target double game weeks.
Okay. And time for a final question off Muhandi, and I'm quite interested in his answer, because I've got a decision to make on him. Is it time to sell Jota. I'm saying Jota. I always get into trouble for how
it's
I...
Jota, isn't it?
It is Jota. Oh, flipping it.
Yeah.
Is it time to sell Jota? So here's a scenario for you, Adam. If we find out on the presses that Jota is not going to be fit for game week 8, would you look to sell or would you look to hold him as a long-term hold?
It depends on Rafinha as well. So if we're assuming that Rafinha is definitely out, it's quite tough. But I think there's a few options actually where you could go with Jota. You've mentioned Mason Mount. I think he could be quite an intriguing one to look at for and he's got good fixtures, hasn't he? Brentford, Norwich, Newcastle. So Mount could be an option. I think you got Foden at the same price. So there's some really easy get outs from Jota. And Mbumo, if you want to cash elsewhere. And if you've got a bit in the bank, you could go up to Son. So I think there are enough moves. And I think he's got Man United the following week. And it could be that if he is a bit of a doubt, even if he's not fully fit, he's on the bench the following week. So I think there are too many options available to keep hold of him. If he is fit and there's some confidence, even that he'll get minutes off the bench and that he's going to play, he's my favourite of the sub 8 million midfielders. But I can't be doing with a half-fit player because he had this towards the end of last season where he had an injury and I think he ended up missing 3 or 4 matches. So yeah, I would get rid.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's move on now then. And now let's turn our attention specifically to Game Week 8. And firstly, we're now showing the XG versus XGC table, which helps indicate how matches may play out as per the stats from the 7 game weeks played so far. So this does show that Liverpool are expected to score the most goals this weekend and expected to beat Watford reasonably comfortably. And it also shows that Man City expected to score a couple of goals and intend to keep a clean sheet at home to Burnley as well. As you'd expect in all fairness, nothing kind of truly interesting there. The interesting one I saw is that it does predict Wolves to have a favourable result against Villa, which I found quite interesting, even though the game is at Villa Park. But there are lots of tight games this week. Now, Everton, West Ham, Brentford and Chelsea, Southampton, Leeds, Brighton expected to beat Norwich. Newcastle and Spurs very tight, Arsenal Palace very tight. So yeah, interesting one. When we may see a glut of clean sheets, or we may see a glut of kind of 1-1s or 2-1s either ways. But Liverpool and Man City, the obvious ones that stand out. But that Wolves one against Villa was one which. What's the thing about that, Adam? Do you think it's a load of rubbish or?
It depends if Douglas Luiz is out for Villa, but no, because of his international involvement with Brazil. No, I fancy Villa to win that game. Actually, I think it also it'll be interesting to see how we set up if we persist with 3 at the back. But if Leon Bailey's fit, even if we get half an hour of him, I think we'll see him come on and have a big impact. So no, I'm optimistic about Villa. I'm there at the game, so. Looking forward to it. So yeah,
Wolves are going to win 2-1. So I'm going to have a bet. I'll have a bet on that. I think.
You know what? Traore will get his. I don't know how many matches he's gone without. I'll put it this way: your bet's not looking very good.
I couldn't believe when Jimenez. Who were they playing? Southampton, and Traore came on and really late, and Jimenez could just squared it to him for a tap in, and he tried to score it himself. I always think of you. Like whenever now I watch Traore on the pitch come close, I always think of you. I've got you. You live in my head when it comes to Traore at the moment.
Yeah, but if you were Jimenez and you had a choice of shooting from an impossible angle or passing to Traore, you would argue. He'd mess it up, wouldn't he? So yeah, it's yeah. I think to be fair, you got it right with Torres at the time, didn't you? And you've got it right with a couple of others. So yeah, you were due that one, particularly after a few last season.
I can't believe it.
Got it right.
And I've noticed as well, he's fallen right off the expected points stats as well. But he hasn't had the minutes, has he?
I think it's the minutes, yeah. And I just hope he doesn't get anything the weekend because he'll come back to haunt me. He'll get a brace, won't he?
Well. Okay, Adam. So in terms of the best captain for game week 8, we put a poll out earlier at FFH in the Score HQ. Who is the best FPL captain for game week 8? Haven't seen a landslide like this for a while, but Mo Salah, unsurprisingly, came out on top with 80% of the votes. Second place was Lukaku with just 8%. Third was Ronaldo against Leicester. And I chucked in Vardy because I do think I'd be amazed if Vardy doesn't get a return this weekend. I really do think he gets...
He's looked sharp, hasn't he, I
he's
think?
looked
He's looked really sharp. And he has the start of the last two campaigns prior to this. So, yeah, I think you made a good point on Vardy. I think good option.
Who's the best captain, Adam, for Gameweek 8? It was a bit of an easy one this week.
I think if we had certainty of if I knew what the Man City team was going to be against Burnley, I think the one that I really fancy for them is Riyad Mahrez, but it's just too much of a risk to see if he'll start or not. I think he's got a good record against Burnley as well. Did he get a hat-trick against them last season?
I think he did,
He got a couple of goals against them the season before, because I had him in on my wild card, and I remember that really well. So yeah, the answer's Salah, but I think City, if you can nail the City attacker this week, that's the fixture to target, in my opinion.
What about Cancelo?
I've never had a good experience of captaining defenders, and I think if we know Zinchenko's out and he's definitely going to start, I think there's an argument there. But hang on, I don't think you'd go for him over Salah. You'd have to be a brave person to do that.
But I've written down anyway this week, on my notes. It's not a week to gamble, is it? Is it?
No, not at all.
His effective ownership is probably going to be about. I think the highest I've ever. Well, if you exclude like a double game week and things or a triple captain, I think the highest I've ever seen is something like 180%. But I think that could, after his performance against Man City and the fact that all the other good options aside from Vardy are all playing away from home as well. So obviously Ronaldo's away, and Lukaku's away as well. I think we could see 180 plus. I think we could see like 185. I don't think it's a week to gamble. Play sensibly. Go with the form player with a great fixture. It's an obvious alternative. But I do think Vardy is going to have a good week. He's going to be my thing. I think Vardy doesn't get 2 returns this week. Man United.
I think the best. And you're going to go on when you talk about winning the mug. If I was gambling and I can do it, I think Mahrez for me is going to be the top scorer, because Jesus has been playing really well on that right wing, but he's not available. Foden tends to do better from the left. Grealish tends to do better from that side. Sterling plays left or central, so you maybe could have Torres sneaking on the right, but I think he's tended to play as a 9. So it frees up the chance for Mahrez. So if anybody wanted I think what I would say is if you're planning to wildcard next week and you wanted a 1 week punt, go for Mahrez. His record against Burnley is very, very good, and I think if he starts, I think he'll do well. Yeah, I think so. I think he'll outscore Salah this week, but I'm not in a position to take that,
of course,
to take that risk. So I'm not going to back against Mo. I think Salah will get a goal this week, but I don't think I don't see him exploding.
Excellent. Okay, so now we have your team up on screen, Adam, ahead of Game Week 8. Do you want to run through your players and your plans for the coming game week?
Yeah, so I've got Sanchez in goal away at Norwich. Happy with him. Trent on the screen, it's got a yellow flag, or orange flag, whatever colour it is. But I think we've seen that he's back, that's good news. Yeah, so Trent will be starting for me. I've got Rudiger. I'm hoping he's back injury. No, my luck that he'll be written off for this game week, but hopefully not. I've got Shaw and Livramento, and I think I'm going to start Livramento this week.
Okay.
Particularly if Rafinha isn't starting,
good show.
then that's a big plus. But it's not really for I think they've been okay defensively, but I think he's been so attacking, and it's a choice between starting him, Maida, or Gallagher. And Gallagher, I think's maybe gone off the boil a little bit from an FPL perspective. And I'm at the game against Wolves, and whilst your heart shouldn't rule your head in these things, I don't really want to have a Wolves defender when I want Villa to score. So that's why I wouldn't start Semedo. So he'll probably get a 15-pointer now, won't he? And then I've got Salah, Jota, Gray, and Rafinha, and then Antonio and Lukaku. So I'm captaining Salah. I've got one free transfer. At the moment, 2 players I want to get rid of most are, if Jota isn't fit, would be Jota and Shaw. I don't want Shaw anymore. He can go. He can go to McDonald's or something. He's got. But so looking at the options to bring in, I've got a few options here. There's 2 options that are standing out to me, and I'm not sure which I prefer at the moment. So I can go Shaw and Jota to Foden and Cancelo, or I can go Shaw and Jota to White and Son. So the latter means no Man City covered, and I do really want Cancelo. So I could maybe do someone like bring Mbeumo in, but I don't know. I think the upside of Son and Foden this week, and Son's probably somebody I'm going to want longer term, but it's just going to be not having Cancelo, which is obviously a player that I want as well. So I just need to think about it. I watch the internationals. I watch the press conferences. I'm undecided which way to go. And then the plan would be whatever moves I do this week, I save the week after, because Gray has got Watford at home and Gallagher has got Newcastle at home.
Nice.
So I've got 2 nice fixtures there. So I'll have enough to get me through with good fixtures, and then I'll attack Brentford the week after. We're bringing in probably Mbeumo and Tony, and I might even make a 3rd transfer depending on what I need. So that's my plan at the moment. But I both of those options could work well. My ideal would be obviously to be bringing Cancelo and Son, but I can't make it work. I don't think I can even find not that I want to take an 8-point hit, but I don't even think I can find an 8-point hit that would work with that either. So
if you care about my opinion, I would probably go for Cancelo early doors and move to Son after. I think right. I know you.
I do care about your opinion. Yeah, I do care.
I know you're contemplating maybe White and Son against Cancelo and any other really, but I think like a City defender, and I think Cancelo in particular. It's not just because he's a City defender. I think on his own right, his own merit. I think he merits and warrants being in our FPL teams, and to have Trent and Cancelo in the same team it's incredibly exciting. As well as everyone else you've got. That's my personal preference.
I think you're right, and I might gamble on Foden. I think it is a gamble because I'd have to be prepared for him not to start every week, but I think the way he's playing at the moment, it is awesome. And to be fair, I had Jota in that spot, and so I might do that. And then we'll see. But I agree with you. I feel uncomfortable not having Cancelo or not having any City defenders. Son is somebody I would like, but what I could do, so I would still have, even if I had Foden, or I could go Mount even for 3 game weeks, and then move to Son in game week 12, because I'd have with the moves I planned, I would have the money to do that. It just means maybe an extra hit.
Sense. So back-to-back hits then for the Hopcroft.
Yeah, well, I think looking at it, I mean, if Jota, the plan was just to do Shaw to Cancelo and keep Jota, but if he is injured, I think I'll do it.
Sense. And moving on to my team, so I've got Sanchez in goal, Rudiger, Shaw, and Trent at the moment. Rafinha, Greenwood, Jota, Salah, and Benrahma, Antonio, and Lukaku. At the moment, I've got Livramento first on my bench, and Semedo second, with obviously Richardson, the non-playing striker, third. So I've got a fair few flags, and Rafinha's not even flagged. He should probably be flagged there. But my thoughts I actually had this plan before the last game week, and my plan all the way through is to get rid of Greenwood and Shaw this week for Mbeumo and Cancelo. So I'll, a back three, which I really, really want, of Rudiger, Cancelo, and Trent. I would then have Rafinha, Mbumo, Jota, Salah, Benrahma, Antonio, and Lukaku. Now, in terms of flags and stuff, I think this is where, again, because I play the other games, I don't necessarily mind playing with 10, and I know in FPL it's a bit of a playing with 10, but again, I always try and think kind of longer term. I don't just want to make a transfer and bring in another player if I really think that Jota, for example, is a great long-term hold, because they're the kind of moves you do and you absolutely kick yourself, don't you, when he comes back. We've already mentioned they got Man United next week. Man United's defence hasn't been good.
That's true.
At all, So
I think it just depends on his injury. That's the big thing.
I completely agree. If he's out for more than like a week, I think then
agreed. Yeah, that's where I'm at as well, because I'd be happy to keep Jota, because I think he's like I said, I think he's the best in that category. I was going to say Greenwood, I reckon, will start versus Leicester. You're not tempted to hold him, because I think they've not looked great defensively, and he's not been on international duty, has he? So
I can't hold him if I want to upgrade Jota Cancelo. So this is it. All I'm almost kind of chuffed in a way that it forces my hand a little bit. I love the weeks where the captaincy is easy and the transfer is easy. You don't have to think. And this is the thing of holding Greenwood or going to someone else. I want Cancelo, so it kind of it forces my hand. So I think even if Jota is going to be out for maybe a week, it's too absolutely maximum. I'm happy to hold on to him, because, like you say, I've got.
Yeah.
Where you go?
And no, I agree with you. I really didn't want him to be injured, because he was somebody I was looking forward to others selling. So
like Trent last week as well. But everyone's like scrambling back to get him now this week, where it's going to be a tough one. But yeah, it is a -4. So I've taken a few hits this season. I think I took a -8 in game week 4 to get Ronaldo in. I took a -4, I think, in game week 6, and I've taken another now in game week 8. But I could use my wild card, but I wouldn't know what I'd be wild carding into. There's not enough for me to transform my team.
Do you know what? When you asked me to put that wild, I know. Typically, you ask me to do it instead of doing it yourself.
Give you all the work, Adam.
Exactly. But I actually thought it was quite difficult to do, and to get a wild card team I was happy with. And when I've had my best wild cards, I've known the team, and obviously I wouldn't put the wild card I did this season in that category. But I comfortably know the team straight away, because I know the players that I want, and I'm not sure at the moment.
I think it's almost like, obviously, I mean, absolutely no disrespect to anyone at all who's wildcarding this week. It's everyone's personal, it's team dependent. Everyone, is personal preference, and it is only a game, right? But I kind of think if you've got the template, it's almost forcing it this week. It's almost like you preempted using it at this time, so you just almost going ahead with it. I think if you looked at any other season, you looked at your team, you looked at the template, you looked at your rank potentially as well, no way you would wildcard. But I'm happy. I have to hold my hands up there and take a barrage of abuse on that. But I personally think that's what a lot of people are potentially doing, because the template is still incredibly strong and scoring well every week. And when I say scoring well, contextually scoring well against the average and stuff, So, but that's just a personal thought. I know plenty of very, very good married to wildcarding, so personal preference. Do you have any thoughts on that, Adam, or are you going to sit on the fence? Or
no, I'll sit on the fence. I don't want to agree with you again. So,
yes, come on, that's about 5 tonight, Adam. I can't believe it. It's about 5. I'm learning off you, see. I am.
But no, I sort of, because I didn't think this until I started to put a team together, if that makes sense. But if I look at who are the players that I would absolutely want on a wild card, well, I think the keeper, if you just going through it, your keeper, I'd be equally happily with Reyes, Sanchez, or Ramsdale. I don't have a huge preference there. I'd probably want a Chelsea defender. I'd probably want Cancelo. I'd probably want Trent. We're both probably going to have those players the weekend. In midfield, you'd probably want Salah, Rafinha, and then outside that, I think you can make a case for so many different players, including the ones that we currently own. And then forwards, I've seen people ditching Antonio. I think he'll tick along nicely, and he's the sort of player that does well in the tougher fixtures anyway.
But
so
his price point is also perfect to hop off to Calvert-Lewin or someone else anyway. So, even if he doesn't perform massively, it's not like you've got a problem there. You can just move off him really quickly at a different point.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know yet if I mean I suppose we'll see next week in the next few weeks how people do
when our rank plummets.
Exactly, but I don't know. I think there's players like Benrahma, Jota could still do well, and
this is the thing. Even though with Benrahma, he hasn't returned in the last two. I think he's been incredibly unfortunate not to return in the last two. Same for Jota. I know he scored one, but all these players I'm holding, I'm looking at them every week and thinking Greenwood is the only one which I've been disappointed with. But even he had, was it 8 shots in the in the last game or the game before, and all this kind of stuff. It's like, anyway.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Okay, competition time for our YouTube watchers. Firstly, there was no game week 7 winner. The winner was Llorente for Leeds, got a 15-pointer. There were no winners. If anyone wants to debate that, please send me something. But I briefly went through it and I couldn't find anyone who picked out Llorente for game week 7. But this week's competition, and for a chance to win one of our fantastic Fantasy Football Hub mugs, Adam, I believe you've got one there, haven't you? You've been sipping from it all evening. You need to like this video, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, and then comment on who you think will be the top point scorer in game week 8. So, Adam, who are you going for? You mentioned him earlier, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, I'll go Mahrez, but I think just to give people in the chat some help on this, how many times do defenders? It's usually centre backs that get a goal from
House
corner.
The week before, wasn't
Courtney
it?
House the week before. Yeah, it does tend to. It's either that or So yeah, I think the one. If I wasn't going for Mahrez, I think another really good shout this week is Shane Duffy, because he looks so dangerous for corners, and he's playing Norwich as well. So I'll go with Mahrez based on what I said earlier, but I think Shane Duffy's a possibility as well.
Love that. I'm gonna stick with my Vardy shout. I think he's gonna cause United real problems this week, so I'm gonna stick with Vardy. Best of luck to everyone for that. Make sure you put your comment in. Make sure you like and subscribe too to have a chance of winning one of the mugs. Let's have a look at the standings after game week 7 in the @FFH_ Green Arrow Mini League. In 10th place, Mahbub Rawat. In 9th place, Nick Birtle. 8th, Owen McGuinness. 7th, Joe Widowson. 6th, Dinka Brackenov. 5th, Aaron Ross. 4th, Jawad Khan. 3rd, Andrew Williams. Joint first, actually, we've got Akshat Dioli and Mark Phipps. So Mark Phipps, actually, there's 3 all in first place, I believe, actually. But Mark Phipps scored 50 points in game week 7 and is 379th overall. Make sure you join our mini league. There'll be a Fantasy Football Hub goodie bag prize and free premium membership for first place at the end of the season. The mini league code is QDASZ2, where our YouTube watchers can join using the auto join link in the description below. So that is it from us this week. Adam, great to be back. Really enjoyed the chat as well. I think it's been interesting. It's been a good, it's been a break from FPL. It's good to finally kind of dust it off and chat through all these players again. Thank you so much, always, Adam, for joining me. Where can people get hold of you?
On Twitter, Hopcroft13.
Okay, my Twitter handle is @FFH_Fergies. This podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel, with the podcast versions available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watched, please press the like button. Remember to subscribe in the channel. Remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are @FFH_HQ, and our podcast Twitter handle is @FFH_Green Arrow. So make sure you drop us a follow there. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you will find everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top player team reveals, point predictions tools, and much more. Join the tens of thousands of other fantasy managers. Run to the hub, choose all our amazing resources. Click the top link in the description below. We'll be back next week, looking ahead to Game Week 9. Stay safe and may all your arrows be green. Good night all.